Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Very welcome to Science and Innovation Day. Hey, Sundsvall! Yay! Is there anyone that is not from Sundsvall or Norrland here that has traveled far? There's one. Yeah, he's a speaker. What about you? Where are you from? Yes? Sorry? Oh, extra welcome to you. So, my name is Annika Englund, and I will be your guide today. I'm not very interesting, actually. I look like this for you who forgot your glasses at home today, or contact lenses. I'm a writer, linguist, and I'm also a digital strategist. One of the speakers here today is that too, so I'm extra nervous when he gets on stage. He probably knows more than I do. Anyway, we had some nice partners that you saw on the previous slide. So can we show that slide again? That's our partners. So this whole conference for the 4th year in a row. This year, these are our partners, and we should be extra thankful for them to make that happen. But also, we have the Mid-Sweden University, which is the initiative taker for this whole conference. Anyway, I'm not going to be very long-randy, speak very long. What I want to do is to ask you to do something. I have no idea if any of you have seen improv theater. Have you seen that? Raise a hand. Yeah, more than that has traveled here to Sundsvall. So, improv actors love applause. But we're not the only ones. Speakers, especially keynote speakers, they're going to speak for almost an hour today. And they really deserve applause. So I think we're going to practice applause. Okay, imagine that you've been to a bar, a local bar here in Sundsvall. You've had some happy hour beers or wine, and you've been listening to the same guy all night, singing the same song on karaoke. It's 3 o'clock in the morning, and you kind of like need to be polite and applaud him. So what would an applaud sound like? I'm going to count to 3. 1, 2, 3, go. You're really polite. Let's try again. He's been singing the same song all night, and it's karaoke. Don't forget that, okay? 1, 2, 3. You're so generous. Probably because like 75 of you are Swedish. We're really polite. Okay, so the next applaud is you've been to a library and you've been listening to an author conversation, kind of like a samtal with an author. And it's a library. So what would that applaud sound like? On 3. 1, 2, 3. Yes! You don't want to make too much sound in a library, right? Okay, so the last applaud. You've been to Arenan here in Sundsvall, or Globen in Stockholm, or even Ullevi in Göteborg. And you've just seen Beyoncé, or Bruce Springsteen, if you're like my age. So you've been waiting for a year, and you got tickets like 2 years ago. And finally, she or he enters the stage. On 3, what would that sound like? 1, 2, 3. Super. So to encourage our distinguished speakers today, this is what they want to hear. And the more you applaud, the better their speak will be. Okay, don't forget that. So I'm not going to stand here forever and speak. I would like to, let me look at this. Yeah, we're going to do a Mentimeter test. You see this on the screen here. So take out your mobile phones and go to menti.com. And this is mandatory. Okay? You done? Okay. So, and you should enter the code 842993. This is totally anonymous. You don't have to be kind of like think, oh my God, NRA is coming to get me. Good. So just vote on whatever emoji represents you today. Do we have any startups here? Yeah, 1, 2. No, you're just picking your nose. No startups? Okay. That unicorn, which is 34% right now, represents a startup, a tech startup actually, that has made more than 1 billion crowns in revenue. So I think we have a winner. It's the happy one, yay, which is probably about to applaud. And the second one feels like a unicorn, kind of like an animal that doesn't exist. You're in a fantasy world. 17%. Who's tired? You don't want to acknowledge yourselves. Okay, and 10% are in love. Anyway, I think it's time to present the reason why you're all sitting here. He's the guy to blame if this conference is like really boring or if you're still sleeping by lunch. So, welcome up to stage Anders Fällström, the Vice Chancellor of Mid Sweden University.
Very interesting. Two things that are very true. Everybody knows more than I do in this audience, and maybe we'll sing the same song once again, but I hope that for some of you there will be some new things at least. What a wonderful audience. This is the very best mix I can dream of. It's university, academia, you're from companies, and there are students here. Couldn't be better, I think. Most of you probably think you know a lot about Mid Sweden University, and many of you do. But my experience is that even we who work at the university not always know that much about other fields than our own. So I would like to start with telling a little about what Mid Sweden University really is. And then say some few words about what we want to do in the future. But first of all, once again, most welcome to this very interesting conference, the 4th in a row, with so many people here. It's really good. And as I said, the very best mix with cooperation between industry, innovation platforms, university, and students, I hope. Mid Sweden University, a global university with regional engagement, a university located in the very middle of Sweden with 2 campuses, Östersund and Sundsvall, approximately half size of the university, both of them. We have about slightly more than 13,000 students, 1,000 employees, and a turnover about more or less 100 million euro per year. So we are quite a big company, I would say. Mid Sweden University also is a comprehensive university, including the humanities, social science, healthcare, design, technique, and natural sciences. And we are also a young and very, I would say, alert university with short decisions paths and good opportunities for good scientists. We work for openness and diversity, education in close collaboration with working life and research groups. For us, it's very important to join education and research as much and deep as possible. We work for high quality research, of course, and maybe the most important thing, I'll come back to that, we work for close cooperation with the surrounding community. We have designated 8 strong research environments organized in so-called research centers. 2 of them you know very well. You are a lot of people from there here today. But some maybe you not know that much. The 8 environments are Center for Research on Economic Relations, conducts industry-oriented research on economic relations of individuals and companies in the banking, insurance, audit, and real estate industries. We have Demicom, conducts research on democracy and communication in the digital community. European Tourism Research Institute develops and communicates scientific knowledge about tourism and travel. FSCN, Fiber Science and Communication Network, that you know very well, conducts world-leading research in collaboration with the industry in sub-process from forest to paper, biomaterial, and new products. Swedish Winter Sports Research Center, a research in winter sport, skiing, performance, and health. Risk and Crisis Research Center develops and communicates knowledge about risk, crisis, and security. Sports Tech Research Center, research in sports technology and products for outdoor and sports activities, as well as meeting the demands of people with disabilities. And finally, Sensible Things That Communicate, develops sensor-based systems and services in electronics and computer science with a focus on industrial IT and digital services. These are all more or less multidisciplinary and combine strong basic research with collaboration with partners outside university, such as you, municipalities, companies, or other organizations. The research is to a great extent conducted and made use of in direct collaboration with our external partners, and our research centers are also platforms for cooperation with financiers and other parties. When it comes to education, we have, as I said, about 13,000 students, more than 350 courses, 50 bachelor's programs, and 32 master's programs. I would say that we are the #1 university in Sweden, at least, when it comes to blended learning, distance education, and e-learning. 2 prioritized areas are environments for teaching, technical support, and educational development, as well as regional cooperation, education in close cooperation with working life and alumni activities. All this to get attractive courses and programs of high quality and satisfied students. One important thing is that only 14% of our students come from this region, Jämtland and Västernorrland. But after finishing their studies, almost 50% of our students remain here. This is one way of our regional engagement. We attract students from all over Sweden and internationally. We give them higher education of high quality, and then more than half of them stay in the region, working for companies and public organizations. This is something we can do even better, I think, if we work together, the university, companies, and public organizations. These were a few words about what Mid-Sweden University is today. We are now standing on the starting line for a new vision and new strategies to reach our goals for the period 2018 until 2023. That work will be very inclusive at the university. We will engage all staff as well as the university board, and we will try to engage also a lot of people outside the university. The work will center around 6 areas: digitalization, internationalization, profiling, collaboration outside the university, the good employer, and quality. Internationalization is maybe the most important part to develop our university. A university should be and have to be a melting pot for different ideas, thoughts, and cultures. This is the only way of keeping high quality and develop research as well as education. New thoughts and new cultures is the most important thing. Some parts of our university is very good at this, but looking at the whole university, there are more to do. Digitalization, so, this is maybe not the best word since it's so huge area. And here we talk about a lot of things. One is what you are doing here today, digitalization in industry. What we are doing within our research centers such as FSC and STC. But we also talk about education. As I said, Mid-Sweden University is probably the #1 university in our country when it comes to e-learning. This means that we are in a position to take the next step and once again be the leading university. At least Swedish universities are not that good at attracting companies and other organizations when it comes to updating skills of their employees, part of lifelong learning. We want to develop a new way of distributing such courses and programs, courses that better fit the situation at companies, where the employees cannot be gone for weeks to take a course at the university. This is one very important thing to develop at our university. Profiling, so. We are, as I said, a comprehensive university with education and research from the humanities to technique and design. We are also not a very big university, and this means that we have to prioritize and profile within each area. We want to keep our broad university, but we have to be more sharp in each part of it. This is a work that has been going on for a while, but we still have more to do. To keep the highest quality in what we do, we have to be very sharp. Collaboration outside university. This is maybe, together with internationalization, the most important part, I think. For a university like Mid-Sweden University, it's not enough to be just very good at education and research. If that was our only goal, it would probably be better for Sweden, I think, to concentrate this to our 3, 4, 5 biggest universities. So we have to do something more. And what we really have to do is to collaborate with the region and nationally and internationally, of course. Mid-Sweden University has always been good at collaboration, but we will develop this further. Again, both within education and research. But we'll also develop more formal collaborations with other universities. Recently, the 3 most northern universities in Sweden, Luleå Technical University, Umeå University, and Mid-Sweden University, have agreed on developing a collaboration together with the 6 biggest cities and companies in the regions. We will collaborate within 4 different areas with the goal to develop northern part of Sweden, which will help to develop all of Sweden. The university is necessary for our region to develop in a good way, but we also have to remember that the region is very important for the university to develop in its good way. So we really are depending on each other here. The 5th area is the good employer. A workplace characterized by a good working environment where employees feel security and joy, that's a very fundamental thing for good development of an organization. And this applies not least to creative places such as research and education environments within universities. It should be fun and stimulating to go to work. This is maybe the most important part to get good research, good collaboration, and good education. Finally, quality. And this is, of course, the sum of the 5 first ones. I could mention just a couple of things that we will focus on when it comes to research and quality, and this is to raise our external funding and to rise our international publishing. These are the areas around which we will center our work on strategies for Mid-Sweden University in the future. There's also one more area I would like to mention, and that is the world of sport. Not because we are discussing sport here today, as sport is a very large part of what we are doing measured in money. But I think sport is interesting from a lot of viewpoints. A lot of people are involved in it and love to watch and perform different kinds of sports. It's also interesting that sports science includes almost all parts of a university, or at least could do that. It can be a very good reason to collaborate over fields that you never thought of as partners. Technology, science, medicine, psychology, economics, sociology, pedagogics, mathematics, healthcare, history, and a lot of other subjects could all join in within the framework of sport. Mid-Sweden is today quite good at sports sciences, especially when it comes to physiology, biomechanics, and sport tech. And our region is also very into sports, especially winter sports, such as cross-country skiing, alpine skiing, and biathlon. Sport can therefore be a good injection for further interdisciplinary research and education, and collaboration with organizations outside the university. Starting with sport could lead to much deeper and other collaborations, I think. As you see, Mid-Sweden University is eager to be an active part of developing our region and country, producing research that are important for the companies in the region, and producing high competence for municipalities and companies. That is what we will do even better in the future. Mid-Sweden University should be number one choice for external partners such as companies and municipalities when it comes to collaborate with academia, research and develop. So with these words, I'll finish and wish you the most interesting day here together with university and partners. Thank you.
Thank you so much. We have some questions for you here.
You do?
Yes. And this is what you can do throughout the conference. Ask questions on Mentimeter for every speaker. Oops. So, what should we pick? Okay, so how does Mid-Sweden University work with regional business and or other actors?
This is a very good question, since this is something that I have been here only for a half a year, more or less. But this is one of the things that have made me become most glad, I would say. Usually, or it's quite usual that university, when they cooperate with business, for example, only one of the partners are getting something out of it. It could be very good for the company, or it could be very good for the university, but it's quite seldom that both get as much as they want out of it. But this is something different to Mid-Sweden University when it comes to collaboration. What I have seen, we are very good at joining companies and university, which starts good and deep research projects within the university, and at the same time give something very important and good to the companies. I think this is because we meet at the right level. The researcher meets the people at the companies or the municipalities, and it's not the vice chancellor at the university or the dean that meet the mayor of the community, for example. But we do it with people who know what they want to do and how to do it.
So what you're saying is that the culture of the academia and the culture of the business are able to meet in this process.
Here in Mid-Sweden University and in our region, yes.
Yes, that's excellent. You're a role model for the rest of the universities and the businesses in Sweden.
Maybe.
Yes,
so.
Excellent. So let's have another question. Which courses are most popular? I think that's from one of the students that we have here.
I'm not quite sure, but I think the most popular program, you wouldn't guess that, but that is about rehabilitation.
Rehabilitation.
Yes, I think that's our most, with the highest
Okay.
search figures.
Do you have an idea why?
Since we are so...
I'm
Universities are popular because of two things, courses or programs, and that is the quality. The main thing must be the quality of our programs. And everybody knows about that. And the other thing is to communicate that. And I think we are quite good. We have good quality in our education, in all programs and courses, more or less. And we are quite good at communicating that.
Okay, great. We have time for one more question. Do you want to pick one yourself? You can do that, you know. You're the expert.
Which are the these are easy, just it. Which are the 6 northern cities that are working together with us? This is Luleå, Skellefteå, Umeå, Östersund, Sundsvall, and Örnsköldsvik.
Super.
And then you can pick Modo or Timrå, and the answer is Brynäs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a great question. So?
Yep. Another one?
If you don't speak too long, how research results becomes innovation and business? That's pretty much what I asked you. But what is the short version of the answer of that question?
The short one is the most important thing is probably to have people that are in between these two. To understand that all cannot do everything. We have to have people that are doing really basic research, and we have people in the companies. But the most important thing is people living in between this. And I think we have found quite a lot of such people here in Sundsvall.
Congratulations. And thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yay! Yay, he's a superstar. This is... Okay, so before we present the next speaker, I forgot something, maybe the most important thing of the whole day, toilets. So the toilets are upstairs and to your right when you come out. We have emergency exits in case there's a fire. One is there and one is up there. Just follow the light and the green signs. We also have coffee, and that's 10:45, and it's right outside where you got your morning sandwich and your morning coffee. And then we have lunch at 12:10. And before lunch, I'm going to tell you something, and you will have to sit here in anticipation until then. And that's upstairs. Okay, so now I want to welcome Marco Luciano, Vice President, Paper Making and Packaging, Bioeconomics at RISE. Welcome up, Marco.
Nope. Then we have to restart it. So thank you, Annika, and good morning, ladies and gentlemen.
Seemingly all at once, new technologies emerged on many fronts. Breakthroughs in automation, energy, nanotech, biotech, computing, and neurotech technologies drove unprecedented changes. New technologies reshaped society as well as how individuals and organizations interacted. Promising technological applications emerged with such speed that most decision makers in business and politics were overwhelmed and even paralyzed by the sheer amount of opportunity, uncertainty, and choice. The shaping of society was quickly dominated by a new breed of large corporations designed to probe, explore, scale, and secure business concepts. The sustainability issues of old were quickly forgotten as there was an abundance of viable solutions. Instead, the issue is that there is no stable paradigm in sight, no shared basic understanding of the world and where we are heading.
So that could very well be a storytelling of what's happening between 2017 and 2030, seen from the perspective of 2030. My name is Marco Lucisano, and I'm Vice President of Papermaking and Packaging at RISE, and RISE stands for Research Institutes of Sweden. It's a rather new constellation, and it's the Swedish State Research Institute. My day job is to work with papermaking and packaging, and that's my education as well. And in case you wonder why the organizers invited a professional papermaker to talk about the future, the reason is that report up there, which we published last year. I like going to the theaters and I like going to performances. And there is something that I've noticed in Stockholm recently, namely that when we're here at the beginning of a performance, the organizers or the theater will come out with a voice saying, "You're very welcome to take photographs and recordings, provided that you share them on social media." Which is something new, at least to me. So you're very welcome to do that. And if you want to get in touch with me via social media, LinkedIn might be the very best way to do so. A cellulose-based society was the name of the study that we published, and it's the base of what I'm going to talk about today. And a cellulose-based society comes from an idea: what if cellulose, which happens to be the most abundant polymer or material substance used by nature, in nature, could be reinterpreted as one base for a circular bio-based economy? And what would it mean? And mind, I said one base. It's not the only base. We don't believe in a kind of material fixation. Now, since we live in the northern part of the world, this is possibly what we associate with cellulose, which of course is true, but this is also cellulose. What's this? Sugarcane bagasse. And this is cellulose, algae, and this is cellulose, eucalyptus plantation, and this is cellulose, cotton, and this is cellulose, rice fields, and this is cellulose, bamboo, and this is cellulose, bacteria. And this is cellulose. Possibly not the part that we eat and drink, but the rest, what's left. So we have quite a lot of cellulose in nature. Do you know how much we have? Any guesses? I can't even say how many zeros there are. There are 10 zeros after 10. It's a huge number of material. And to me, this is very difficult to understand. So if we say, okay, per second, how much cellulose is produced per second? It's 3,000 tons per second. And it literally grows on trees by itself. We don't need to do anything. So is this a lot or is it a little? If we want to say that we want to shift into a cellulose-based world, is this more or less than the amount of oil that we extract from the earth? It's a lot more. So we have plenty of cellulose on this planet. And that was the basic idea of our study. And if you want to talk about the future, two things that you very often see are studies that are either visions or forecasts. And I represent a research institution. We are researchers. So visions are good, and forecasts are for other kind of consultants. To us, looking about the future is more symbolized by this picture. And in case you say future and it's a foggy road, I would like to argue that this is actually a very good picture. Because if you learn how to drive your car in a foggy road, what you are actually doing is you are training yourself to recognize signals that are barely seeable and react on those. And by doing so, then you drive yourself safely home. And that's the whole exercise about the future. And if you still think that this is not a very positive picture, then I would like to remind everyone that the future is actually the only thing that has not happened yet. So it's something that we can work on. So what we tend to do, if we don't want to do forecasts and we don't want to do visions, is to define the space of what is technically and scientifically possible today and maybe 20 years down the road, and then look at global trends in society and see where these two parameters meet. Because where they meet, then you might find areas that are worth investigating. And this is what researchers do, regardless if you are in a university, in a research institute, or into a company. The way we have done it is by talking to a lot of people. And this is my colleague Tatiana. She is one of our sustainability experts. We have interviewed people by the hundreds, everywhere over the world, in academia, in the industry. We have interviewed consumers. We have interviewed non-governmental organizations, politicians, all around the world. And we've asked them what's top of mind, what's their biggest concerns, what are hopes for the future, and how are they moving to navigate their way towards the future. And then, of course, we are not the only one thinking, so you can read a lot. You can read a lot digitally and still on the old gold medium paper. And when you have done all of this together, you get a lot of inputs, and you have to sort it out. You have to make sense out of it, which we do in internal and external settings, so that we try to find themes and things that are recurring. And when you have done that, we are still researchers, so we like numbers, and we need numbers to talk about what people are actually thinking today. And the good, or the great, the famous Hans Rosling said that you can't talk about the future if you don't understand today. So this is why we want to understand today. The way we did it is through an international consumer survey. We have asked 500 people in each country of our survey, and it's Sweden, Germany, the United States, Brazil, and China. And those people are urban citizens representing the middle classes, and they are selected so that the income distribution represents the income distribution in every specific country. So it's adjusted to the different countries. And just to point it out, since we are researchers, a lot of us, it's actually 500 people that completed the survey, not that started. This was a very heavy survey. We've asked a lot of questions about everything, and then we tried to summarize all of it. We have 400 pages of raw data, and now I'm going to go through every single one of those. Or maybe not. A summary. We are a worried kind. This is actually new in history. Earlier in history, we were worried for one specific thing. Today, we are worried about everything at the same time, but not quite to the same extent. So if I ask people how worried about environmental issues, this is the distribution. So above the horizontal line, you see the people that say that they are very worried about the environment, and below the horizontal line, the people that don't worry at all. And in between, you have the rest. You see anything? Good. Do you react on something? Do you want to make it even better? Next question. Do you care about the environment? Puff. Any Swedes here? Is this your impression of yourself compared to this or that? So why? I don't know, but there is one thing I would like to maybe claim could be behind this, is that if you live here or there, you see the problem. Remember that we've asked urban citizens in every country, if you happen to live downtown Stockholm or Gothenburg or Sundsvall, you don't see the problem. So you don't care. So if we do care, why do we care? And now it's a somewhat different scale. Above the horizontal lines are the people that care because of concerns for the world. Life in the sea, living creatures, animal, plants, poor parts of the world. Below, me, myself, my kids, my family, my environment. You see a trend? Same as before. The Western world, Sweden and Germany, care more about the rest of the world because we don't need to care about ourselves. We are safe. It's rather peculiar, and it's one of the driving forces that is going to influence how we think about the future. Who is responsible for the environment then? We've asked a lot of questions, and we've asked people to tell us if they trust a group and how much responsibility they ascribe to a specific group. And there is one point that stands out, and it's you and me as individual consumers. We don't believe in companies, governments, and all of it. It's about you and I. So how should we do it? Should we maybe work politically? Should we donate to charity? Or should we consume another way, or maybe the way we do? And the result is actually completely irrelevant which country it is. This is the result. So urban citizens representing the middle classes in our 5 countries believe that it's about you and me as individuals, and we should do it through the way we consume and live our lives. This is how to make the future a better place. But not quite the same way, because if we ask Swedes, we believe that we should buy locally produced goods and used products and recycle our household waste. While in the United States, you are keen about the sharing economy. And in China, you avoid chemicals and you don't travel by car. While in Germany, you don't travel by plane and you buy locally produced goods. And in Brazil, you reduce consumption and reuse products. So we are not the same across the globe in our 5 countries. But there is one thing that is common, and it is very interesting, to me at least, if we asked what's the single most important thing that could happen to make the world a better place, then everyone answers, give us more efficient recycling systems. Actually, the second most common is force company to recycle more. And this is one thing that is interesting to consider, because apparently the urban middle classes have a bias for recycling. And with bias, I don't mean anything that is negative. I mean that the first reaction is we should recycle more. So if we think about the future, we have to consider it. Now, I said that this was a study and an investigation about materials, and something we needed to know is in case our respondents care about materials at all. Because if they don't care, we can't ask them. Are they aware or are they not? And we did ask them. So we asked, if you consider the latest somewhat larger purchase that you have done, for example, a refrigerator, a bed, a sofa, did the materials it was made of influence your choice or not? And the answer is yes. At least to 50% in all countries, in some countries more. So our respondents are good respondents to talk materials with us. So we've asked a lot of questions about materials. If there is one thing I wouldn't have liked to do was to answer to my own questions, because it must have taken forever. We've asked people, is plastic more or less sexy than metal? Is wood more or less attractive than glass? And a lot of combinations. But then we have to summarize, and we did it by using 2 axes, a reliability score and an exclusivity score. Now, if you do that, you see that there are materials down here, plastics, that are not considered to be particularly reliable, nor particularly exclusive. And up there you have natural materials, and those are reliable and exclusive. But then we had to understand, where would the ideal material be? It would be here. So natural materials are, to us, exclusive enough, quite not as reliable as we might imagine them to be. Now, myself and a lot of people around the world are developing bio-based alternatives for the future. And we believe that it's a very good thing. I do. And if I ask consumers, how do they react? Where would they go? Any guesses? Up there or down here? Very close to oil. Is that the intention? Because if that's the intention, we have succeeded. If that was not the intention, we have not succeeded. And there is one thing that we see in our data. The gap is huge, but it's the fact that what is bio-based? We are talking a lot about bio-based, but what is bio-based? Is this bio-based? Is this bio-based? Or is that bio-based? We don't know, and we don't say. We know a lot of things about our respondents because we've asked a lot of questions, so we can actually pick out only those people that are more interested or more knowledgeable in sustainability. So we can single out them. If we only do that, then we go up here. So the difference between this point and that point is knowledge, education, information, and it's understanding. So this is the second conclusion from our study, something that I would like to leave with you. We really, really have to take responsibility for explaining, teaching, communicating, answering questions, and start all over again. Because if we want to develop something new and something that we believe is better, we have to make sure that the people that are going to use it understand that it is better. So far about today. Now the future, and the future is always more interesting, and at least there is something I would like to point out. Everything I'm going to say from here and to the rest, remember that it could very well be the other way around, because it has not happened yet. We asked, imagine a future in which resources from forests are used to create an array of products, everything from textiles and vehicle parts to cosmetics and prosthetics. This would lead to the forest becoming a more important resource in the production of materials and products for which we today use oil, plastic, glass, or metal. How would you react? Would you be essentially positive, in different degrees, committed to help, or maybe just curious, but essentially positive? Or would you be essentially negative, disappointed, or maybe all the way to protesting in public? We've asked our 2,500 respondents how they would react. Guesses? Thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs up, thumbs this way, thumbs down. Carlo, you've heard me already? That's the answer, 50-50. And of course, it cannot be true. It's never 50-50. It's more like this. But it's still 50-50, essentially. The third point I want to leave with you, this is the distribution. A few things I want to comment. There are a lot of details, and I can comment on with you later. The very dark magenta down here, those are the people that would consider take to protesting in public. Something that, for obvious reason, you don't quite do in China. But those are the people that were outside Östrand yesterday. There are not quite as many on the other side. So let us remind ourselves about it. There is another thing. When I'm taking the train to Stockholm tonight, and I'll get off the train at the central station, and I'm going to meet a lot of people, I can either say, wow, 50% of all of those people get it, I should be very happy. Or maybe I should say, Ash, 50% of those people do not get it, and I should be very worried. So how do you react to this one? And what we do together to shift it in the direction we need it to shift for the future. I asked people about the use of forests. And then if you are good at asking people things, you might start to think, did you make sure that they understood the same thing? You asked about forest. Are you sure that they listen, they hear the same thing? They know I'm not. I'm sure that they do not understand the same thing. So we have to check that as well. If I say forest, what do you understand? Because if you compare different realms of ideas, then you will answer in different ways. So I asked people, can you give me 3 words or 3 short sentences that describe your reaction when I say forest? Which country is this? Come on, guys, it's the audience participation part. Wake up. Sweden, why? Seems to be right, it feels right. Mushrooms, yes. I'm Italian, and if you see mushrooms, it has to be Sweden. Correct? Which country is this? Brazil? No. Germany? This one. This is the easiest one. China, why? Air, oxygen and air. Remember, we have asking people in cities, what do they not have in China? Air. This is the US. It's very similar to Germany, so you can actually... And this was another surprise, maybe not a significant one, but when we got the results from the computer, it said like this is Brazil. And life is this big because it was this often. So we had to call the embassy and say, does it make sense for you? And they said, yes. Full stop. So forest in Brazil equals life. The future, trends. Trends are things that are happening and are going to influence our movement from today towards the future. I'll start with an easy one, the city norm. And the city norm is about the fact that more and more of us are living in cities. And then someone could write an objection there. Why do you call it a trend? It's a fact. Yes, it is a fact. A fact with a lot of interesting implications. This being one. Why do I put Sweden and the city of New York on the same image? It's the same amount of people. Which of these two do you think is going to be the highest probability to implement things fast? Possibly. But there is another thing. As we become more and more urban, something that we do not lose is our need for nature. We do really need nature. And those of you that have been in Stockholm know where this image is taken from. It's Kungsträdgården in the spring, where everyone believes that cherry trees in Kungsträdgården is a picture of nature. And this is Saga Story, also in Stockholm, September last year. And that green thing you see on the floor is actually real grass, green grass. And the whole idea was that it was a company, they make houses, and they, quoting their words, wanted to make the people of Stockholm to feel nature under their bare feet. And if we start to believe that that is nature, then we have a problem. This is, to me, a better example of how to balance the need for nature with living in cities. This is Milan, the city where I was born, and this is Bosco Verticale. Bosco Verticale is a forest. It's built in the form of a house. And to me, it's one of the best pieces of modern architecture around. And it mirrors itself in Unicredit's big building. And I left this construction site on purpose on the image because what the city of Milan is building in there is they're digging to start a new park. And the park is going to be called the Library of Trees. So this is, to me, a very modern way to balance the need for nature with urbanization in a huge city. Moving forward, a very self-evident trend, no waste. We don't like waste, and if you just look around at what has been happening the past 5-6 months in Sweden with the rethinking on how we relate to plastic bags, it has gone so quickly. We take away more and more of our waste, which is good. Shift happens. What's this? If you're a company, what business are you in today, and what business will you be in tomorrow? That thing there is actually this thing here. It's noodles, and they're made of cellulose. So they have no calories, no taste, no smell, no nothing. They don't need to be cooked. You can just open the package and eat them. Taste nothing. When we released the report, we served this to our guests, and everyone was very happy. We had a cook to prepare them and make them tasty. But the second interesting thing about this product is they are produced by a company that used to produce viscose for clothes, and then realized that in making food for somewhat fat urban dwellers, you gain more money. Another one, no more plain Janes and average Joes. What's that about? It's about the fact that for urban middle classes, the interests are shifting. So in the middle, you have a lot of consumer power and a lot of interest. But we see that to the left and to the right, we are creating new areas of business, and those are viable. Why do I show a picture of jeans? Well, I told you at the beginning that I am a professional paper maker. I have a PhD in paper making. Those jeans are made out of paper. 31% is paper. It's actually not viscose, it is paper. And it is these jeans. There are 449 pairs of these jeans, and I own 2. So there are 447 left. So for the paper makers in the audience, go and buy one if you have a very thick wallet. And it's not about commenting on my own wallet, it's about commenting on the fact that you can do niche products that are very specific to a very specific interest group and make them work. This is Japanese paper. It's weaved in Italy, and it's designed in Sweden to make things easier. Business activism. Business activism is about companies that decide to move faster than they have to, out of their own will. And now I would like to point out that I'm very sure that all companies are in the business of making money. So when they move faster than they have to, they do so because they believe it is a viable strategy to make money for the future. There are plenty of examples here, and I would just like to mention one, and it's the famous computer company Apple. And maybe not quite the same example that everyone mentions. What did Apple patent on September the 15th, 2016, so last year? What was published in the United States? Yeah. With a name that is very Apple-ish, they published a patent called a bag. Apple patented a paper bag. Not only a paper bag, a white paper bag. Why does Apple patent a paper bag? It's beautiful, it's fantastic design, but it's made entirely in paper. If you want to touch it, in case you haven't seen it, it's here at the break. It is a fascinating thing, but why does Apple develop and patent their own paper bags? Why can't they buy paper bags on the market? Possibly because they want to move faster than everyone else. Maybe, I don't know. Now this is about trends, and trends are things that you can from today describe towards the future and be somewhat sure that they are going to work that way. But then there are uncertainties, and uncertainties are of course uncertain. You can't tell. There might be black swans, and there might be things happening that you can't predict. And if they do happen, they change the course of history. So we had to consider those as well, and this is one. And I'm not talking about oil in sense of are we going to have oil, but mainly are we going to use oil? Will we care about oil, or will we decide not to use oil? This is another uncertainty. We have the agreement, is it going to work? And the more we listen to the President of the United States, the more we might ask ourselves, is it going to work? This is another uncertainty. From here and 15 years down the road, are we going to live in a period of peace or war? Economy, new ideas, and the industrial environment symbolized by the city of San Francisco. Are we going to have a steady flow of innovations or not? We can't say. There is not a single person on the planet that is going to promise you and be accountable for how it's going to work out 15 years down the road. So there have to be uncertainties. And when you have trends, uncertainties, and you know about today, then you can start describing scenarios for tomorrow. And one of the scenarios we heard at the beginning, read by a colleague of mine. And the basic idea about scenarios is to describe a picture, a word, and then try to figure out how would you live in that word and how did you get there. And the basic assumption of our scenarios is that we are in a world that really, really wants to solve its sustainability problems. But since the world around us is going to be very different in our different scenarios, the path to do it so is going to be very different. So in the first scenarios, the technological renaissance, it was a scenario where everything was possible. So all of the innovation and all of the ideas that you in universities and companies are developing is becoming true at the same time. So how do you invest? How do you find the proper choice towards the future if you have 25 working alternatives instead of only having one? How does that work? And this is another scenario, the fragmented world. And the fragmented world is the same basic idea. We really want to solve our sustainability issues towards the future, but every supranational structure that we have today is not working in 2030. So the United Nations are not working, the European Union is not working, the treatment for commerce around the world does not work. So how do we react if we still want to solve our sustainability issue for the future? And as you see and hear, I'm not giving you answers, there are no answers, I'm only trying to help you paint a picture and live yourself inside the picture. Now I would like to back off from the future and back today, 2017, with a direction towards the future. And I would like to round off my time on the stage talking about opportunities, and someone might even say missed opportunities. You remember this one? We talked about the city norm, and we talked about this one, no waste. Something that happens in cities, and it's happening in Stockholm, is this. We urban people do not want to cook anymore. So we take out our phone, we don't call anyone, of course, we take out our app, and we order food. And for the sake of science, I've ordered a lot of food. I'm responsible for packaging as well, so I have to study applied packaging science. And then you eat your food, and this is what's left. And since I'm a material scientist, I can notice that the lid is 80% recycled material. Don't know which material. Sorry, wrong direction. The little sauce thingy is PLA, polylactic acid, which I believe to most consumers is plastic. Putting into plastic recycling doesn't work. We have a fork and a knife in unknown plastic. We have a ball in molded pulp. We have a drink in aluminum, and we have paper. What am I supposed to do with that? Why isn't there a better solution? Am I really supposed to do this? This is outside my thing. And I knew that we were coming to a cinema. This is the cinema in Stockholm. Is this really the very best thing we can do today in Stockholm? Couldn't there possibly anything better than this? Are you happy with it? Should we work to make it better? Do you know what this is? The guy is a famous British cook. He has a TV program. It's called War on Waste. And every maybe second month there is an issue on BBC. And this was about this issue, coffee cups. 4.5 billion coffee cups are used in the UK alone every year. 4.5 billion coffee cups. It's fascinating. And all of those are recyclable. Don't need to be that fancy and that designed, but could even have a much wider impact for every single geographical location.
When I saw that, I've seen that picture before, that building before, on Facebook actually, speaking about social media. I thought it was Photoshop, basically. Before actually, I was really intrigued and I Googled it and I saw it was real. But I've also seen these bridges for animals over highways. Yep. Are those real?
Those are for real.
They are?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
They are for real.
Yeah.
Of course they are for real.
Yeah. Which country?
Here.
Do you remember? Here in Sweden?
Yeah, as well.
Did you know that? Okay. Yeah, you're the experts, researchers. Sorry for the stupid questions. Okay, so besides junk and garbage, you have another speciality that you're passionate about. We spoke on the phone the other day, and that is spinning.
Yeah.
You
Do you want me to talk about that as well?
No, but I thought it was an interesting fact. Everybody has a hobby,
Yep.
and you're actually a spinning instructor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you want to talk about that in the breaks, that's good
Yeah,
enough.
I'm not going to make any commercial on what
No.
gym that you're working for. One more
Me neither.
question.
Yes.
Did you fall off a bike?
Never.
Okay. Thank you
Not
so
yet.
much,
Thank you very
Marco.
much. Thank you.
All right. Now we have a project that is very super interesting. It's called the E2MP project, and the next speakers, there are actually 3, will explain what it is. So welcome Birgitta Engberg, Thomas Granfeldt, and Christer Sandberg. Gerard. Take it away.
Tjenare, tack så mycket.
Hej.
Okay, the stage is yours.
Okay, thank you so much.
Då börjar hon.
Is this the first slide?
Vad sa du? Oj då.
It's the end of
Oh,
the
yeah, sorry.
presentation. Go up a little bit. Okay. So you saw it all already, so we start all over. E2MP, as we heard, that's a research program at Mid-Sweden University that has been run for 6 years now, and it stands for Energy Efficient Mechanical Pulping. So it's not completely different from the talk we heard earlier about cellulose. It's just more specific and about production of products and the pulp, the raw material. So you need to do development also on the production processes to be environmentally friendly and to take care of the whole production line. So E2MP was an initiative made by the industry, by the largest companies, forest industry companies in Sweden and Norway. They decided that they wanted to have a common strategy, a common long-term research objective within mechanical pulping. And why did they do this? Well, they wanted to secure a future research competence base in Sweden and Norway. And 2, they also wanted to put up a really tough technical goal for this research, and that was to find ways to reduce energy consumption in mechanical pulping by 50% in a 10-year period. So, maybe you know all about pulping, but just short, you can produce pulp in basically 2 ways, either mechanically or chemically. Mechanical pulp is also called high-yield pulp, since you put in wood into the process, almost all of it ends up in the product in the end. When you produce chemical pulp, you use a digester and you wash out material during the process or after the process, so the yield is lower, about 50%. So when you produce mechanical pulp, you put in wood chips into a huge, gigantic disc mill called a refiner. And that's the most important part of the mechanical pulping process line. Here you can see a very simplified picture of a production line where we have important unit operations like wood chipping, pre-treatment, chip refining, screening, and reject refining. So the E2MP program has been built up around this entire production line. So we have had projects covering all of the production line. So if we put that on the y-axis, or the x-axis, and we put also the projects then on the y-axis, researchers want to put everything in diagrams, right? We've had projects run the latest 6 years on, for instance, fiber development covers the whole production line, and also projects drawing up a baseline, finding the best available technology in 2012 when we started, to have something to compare with, to see what we're going to improve from. We have also had projects on more fundamental issues, material problems, and chipping, wood material. Some projects have focused on pre-treatment of the wood material, on the pre-treatment of ships, and that is, of course, to make the material softer, and in that way reduce the energy consumption in the coming refining stage. We also have projects on intensification of the production line and optimization. And here you see more narrow objective on refining, these 3 projects. And here we have some projects on rejects refining or second stage refining. Also a few projects on CTMP, and CTMP is also mechanical pulp, but it's produced slightly different and is suitable for other products than printing paper. More like cardboard and tissue, for instance, even hygiene products. So the finances of the E2MP program has been summed up to approximately 116 million Swedish crowns, which is quite a large number. More than half of this is industry in kind. It means that the industry has been working with us very actively in these projects. In all of the projects, we have had industry partners. As you can see, the focus has been on refining, and that's natural since more than 90% of the total electric energy in the production process is put in these large machines in the refiners. So now Thomas will continue describing one of the projects a little bit and also describe how we work together with industry, academy industry cooperation. Then Christer will describe a little bit about a demo project that we have run in Holmen Braviken mill. Okay.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, I will start to give a little background before I go into those examples on how we cooperate with the academy and the industry. So it's a little repetition of what Birgitta said. But there is very much focus on this grinder or refiner, as we call it. It's a huge machine, taller than me in diameter, 2 discs rotating, or at least one is rotating, and there is a gap between the discs that is smaller than 1 millimeter. So the tolerances here are extremely important. And in this machine we can process, say, 10 to 30, 40 tons of wood chips or pulp per hour. So it's a huge production. And for this refiner we need a huge motor. I think the biggest motors today are over 35 megawatts for one motor. So when you look at the total energy consumption for a high yield or mechanical pulp in Sweden, for instance, about 18% of what the industry consume regarding electricity is consumed by refiners. So of course there is a very much focus on the refiner and the energy consumption. So in more or less all of our projects, we focus on how to try to reduce the energy consumption, maintain the pulp properties or the end properties of the board or the printing paper. So that was a background. I will then go back in time many years, 25 years about. Then we had a very interesting cooperation with it wasn't a university at that time, it was Mitthögskolan, I guess. But in this high-yield group, idea was developed. Could we soften pulp, mechanical pulp or high-yield pulp, to a high temperature? And I won't go into the details, but could we do that? So by the softening, we could save energy in the refining. And we call this the thermopulp project. And the idea was so interesting, so it was decided to do a lot of extensive pilot plant trials. Pilot plant is it's a mini mill, producing a few kilos per minute of pulp. And during a couple of years, a lot of trials were done, and we could see that the potential, we could save roughly 25–30% of electrical energy and maintain the pulp properties. So this was extremely interesting. So it was decided then to go into mill scale to confirm those results. And mills here in Sweden and also in North and South America invested in this and tried to run this concept. But unfortunately, it wasn't possible to run this continuously in mill scale. And the reason was that with this high temperature, we got such small plate gaps between those rotating discs that it was too risky, you could say. So the project was terminated. But we still have this idea, and it works if we can make it. So that was also a little background. Then into a project we're running right now that Birgitta referred to, abrasive refinery segments. And this is also an idea that came from the Mid-Sweden University, actually from Hans Höglund. And if you look at, I don't know if you can see very well here, but to the right there you have a whole disc in a refiner. And if you look into detail in the geometries there, those bars that are transferring the energy to the pulp of the ships are very large in comparison to a wood fiber, which might only be a few microns, 30 microns in diameter. So the idea here, could we move into using a different way of transferring the energy from those rotating segments to the pulp and to the other segment on the other side? And by doing that, could we get a more stable refining? Because today everything is varying in refiner and in production, etc. So that was a very main objective. And if we were successful here, we could also develop a new theory, a new model for refining. That would be, of course, very useful for basic understanding here and for further optimization of the refining. And now we are in the middle of those programs. Let's see what is the next slide. And that was just this refinery segment, so I skipped that. Yeah, based on this idea with the abrasive segments, a couple of years ago, again, we started several pilot plant trials and tested different configurations of abrasive segments and different ways to run this. And yes, we could find a better stability in the refining. And we could also find that we can put in more energy. We can do more grinding in one stage with those segments compared to earlier plate patterns. Which means that if this is reality in mill scale, we could use fewer refiners and produce the same amount of pulp. So that is a process intensification then, as Christer will talk about later here. We could also see in those pilot plants that we could produce the same pulp at a larger plate gap. And then you remember in my first example, the problem was a too small plate gap to make this thermopulp to be able to run it in mill scale. So here we have an opportunity to go back to those trials in pilot and mill that we did many years ago. So that is very interesting. So therefore it was decided to also bring this project from pilot scale to mill scale. And it's very convenient here in Sundsvall because we have Valmet here, we have Mid-Sweden University here, and we have SEA here. And now we did those mill trials in Nordviken. And we are in the middle of those trials. And first of all, we have seen it's possible to use this type of new segments with an abrasive surface instead of those old bars, as you saw in one picture here. We have also seen that we can develop better strength properties. That is one property that can be interesting for a high-yield pulp. But that's it so far. There is a lot of tricky questions here regarding how to manufacture those new segments, etc. And it takes time. So we have already decided that, despite the fact that now we have done, I guess, three mill trials or something like that, 4 maybe, that we will continue the next 2 years as well to try to get to an end here. So we don't know the final answer in this project yet, but it's extremely interesting regarding the potential energy savings. So my conclusion is here that for a fruitful development, and now I look from an industry perspective, is that we need a mid-Sweden university for basic fundamental ideas, because we don't have the capacity to develop the ideas. We don't have the competence or the critical mass to do that. But to bring the idea into, to apply the idea, we need to test it. Not only in lab scale, we need to go to a bigger scale, a pilot plant scale, which we have in the industry. And from the pilot plant stage, we have to go into a prototype in full scale in the mill. And that's what we have the industries for here. We also need a very close cooperation between academy and industry. Short distances. We are very lucky here in Sundsvall. We have very short distances. And we need the chemistry in between the individuals have to work. And it really does, I would say, in those projects we are involved in. And also with short distances, we are cooperating very close to Holmen, for instance. Christer is traveling from Norrköping to here quite often, and also Stora Enso. And Billerud-Korsnäs in another project. Yeah, I know one conclusion, of course, when you go back to this old project, is a dead end is not always the end. So don't forget old projects, and that the development takes time. Don't forget that. Thank you. Now it's Christer's time to
Well,
talk.
I think it's not so much time left.
No, maybe it's not.
So you
can
have
speed
to
up maybe.
come this afternoon, and we will talk more about process intensification that Thomas mentioned. And I just will show you 2 pictures. We did a trial in Braviken, our paper mill, where we, based on Mid-Sweden University research, we, let's go to this. This is the process layout of the pulp production, simplified block diagram of the production of the newsprint in Braviken. And we, by combining 2 TMP lines, the best parts, we did produce pulp like this. So we cut away tens of or 20 different unit operations, simplified the process, and by that we could reduce the energy consumption to produce printing paper by 25%. We had good runnability and quality of the product, and it was a much easier process to run. So this afternoon, more about process intensification. Very short. Thank you.
Super. Come on here. We have time for questions. You can wait another minute for your coffee, because after this we will have coffee. Come on. So, I think the first question is super interesting. Will you reach the goal to reduce energy consumption in paper mills by 50%, actually by 2021?
22.
22.
No, but we are pretty close, and Per Engstrand usually present this. He look at those different projects we have been running. And maybe it's not fair to summarize the reduction percentages from each project. But I think parts of what I showed here is one stage in that direction, and there are several others, as Birgitta showed.
For instance, the work that you've been done in Braviken and also this project, if you combine that, I think the possibility is to reach 50% in a few years.
Good.
Yeah.
It was a pretty straightforward question, so the answer is yes or no?
Yes.
Yes?
Yes.
Yay. Super. Yeah. What is your next research subject? What is the next focus for the project and for your work?
We believe that now we need to know a lot of more fundamental questions. We need to solve how the fibers are actually transported between these discs that we described, and how they are really applied, how energy is transferred in this gap. So we need to measure more inside the refiner. We also need to model, to use computers to simulate this, and also measure more in full-scale refiners. So combine the different types of knowledge to continue with the research.
Super. So, how important is this research for the industrial partners?
It's very important.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course. They are sponsoring you, or?
No, and vice versa as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we are dimensioned now for this cooperation. And it has been so fruitful during the years. So,
An example, just a short one.
yeah, I tried to show one. Yeah, but there are others as well.
Yeah.
I mean, we don't, in Valmet today in Sundsvall, to be fair, we don't make basic research. We do development.
Yes.
So we need someone to make the research,
Yeah.
as Birgitta said, the basics here, because then you create those brilliant ideas.
Yes, that is so true. And we do actually have time for one question more. So, and that is a prepared one. What do these results mean for the forest industry? I mean, how are you going to implement it? What is kind of like the impact?
I think it's for good research, this is a stepwise process. So what we have seen for Holmen is that we have already implemented some of the parts of this research. If you look at this extreme trial that we did in Braviken, we cannot run continuously because we swapped around too much. It's not possible, and quite large investments are necessary to make this happen continuously. So I think it's from this research program we have find small good pieces that has already been implemented, and for sure there will be larger changes in the future.
Thank you so much, and don't miss the exhibition, I should say, right? Where you're outside. Yes, you were going to show something.
The posters.
The posters.
We have posters.
The poster exhibition.
And there's also a session in the afternoon where we're going to present more
Yes, the
details.
parallel tracks, which I'm going to tell you a little bit about later. So thank you, Thomas.
Thank you.
Thank you, Birgitta.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Christer.
Thank you.
So another applaud. Okay, it's coffee time. We will gather here again at 11:10, and the coffee is right outside, and the toilets as well.
ingredients that can make
Welcome back. I saw there was some kexchoklad and sugar out there. Should sustain you, I hope, until lunch. So, we're continuing this conference with, by the way, we have hashtags. Mark kind of put an idea in my head when it comes to social media. So if you want to Twitter or Facebook or do your LinkedIn updates or maybe even Instagram or YouTube, the hashtag is Science and Innovation Day or hashtag Sundsvall. That could be good. Or hashtag Mid Sweden University or hashtag Mittuniversitetet. You choose. Okay. Now we're going to change track a little bit. We're going to listen to a guy that has been a journalist for a long time at Ny Teknik. I guess at least 50% of you read that news site or maybe the printed version of the news. He's also an advisor in digitalization. I have a tendency to say digitization, but that's something else. Digitalization. So I would like to welcome Mats Levan to the stage. Take it away.
Thank you very much. It's so nice to be here. I'm glad to be here. Actually, I was on a flight this morning from Stockholm that turned back immediately because there was some smoke in the air inside the cabin. So they turned back, and eventually it turned out that several other flights had felt the same smell. So I guess it was, Santa Claus lighting up his fire in the air. It was no problem with the aircraft. I'm glad to be here. So I've been a science and technology journalist for many years. I was trained as an engineer from the beginning, so I come from the technology part. And I used to ask questions. But actually, this is the question that people ask me nowadays. What's going on, really? And you can ask yourself, is this the choice that we're facing today? I mean, following the possibilities of technology to the left or trusting our human capacities to the right? Or could we do both? And how did we get here to a situation where people touch their smartphone 2,670 times a day on average? The top users touch them 5,000 times. I mean, how did we get here? And where are we going? Where are we heading? In the end, the smartphone is just a tool. Technology is just a tool. So could that much change now? Or is it really a tool only? And what's a tool? I mean, well, most people tend to look upon technology as exactly that, as a tool, like a hammer that does what you want it to do, or a computer that programmed to do what it should do. But I would argue that it's not true. What actually changed history during centuries have not been kings and popes and epidemics or wars or, The thing that really pushed history forward, I would say that was actually the invention or inventions made by humans and how they were developed. The wheel, the knife, the printing press. Without the inventions, we wouldn't have been here today. Actually, without the printing press, I don't think we ever had the French Revolution even. And today, technology is more present than ever. And technology is not just a tool, it's a driving force for change. So, I would say it will continue to change. And how fast will it change? That's a good question too, because it's easy to think that, well, with digitalization, for example, that we have right now with the internet, we're so happy to be able to watch all the movies we want to watch, or listen to any music, or do shopping, or be in contact with all people we want through the social networks, getting news. We can do anything today, and that's it. It's going to be like that for 10 years or 15 years. No, it's not, because you forget that 10 years ago we didn't have the smartphone even. So it continues to accelerate. And how much? Well, I went to the concert the other day with my daughter, and this is how it looks like today, People standing there with their mobile phones, lighting up with their lighters. No, not lighters. Do you remember, by the way, how long time ago we were standing there with our lighters? How many years? How many years? 10. Less, more? Well, 10 years. 2015. 2005, this was big news. 12 years ago, cell phones replaced lighters at concerts. It's not that far away, you know. And the reason for this accelerating pace, 10 years ago, we didn't even have the iPhone, the smartphone. It was invented 10 years ago, more or less, presented. So one of the reasons for this is something you probably heard of, which is called exponential growth, exponential technologies. So what's that again? Let me remember my math lessons. Exponential growth, exponential function. That's multiplying with a fixed number every once in a while, right? Multiplying with 2. So if we would make a thought experiment, for example, with a chessboard, and we put 1 grain of rice on the first square, and 2 in the second, and 4, 8, 16, 32, 64, how much would that be? No, not so much. Well, doesn't seem to be so much rice, but you know, exponential growth is tricky because suddenly it takes off. So on the first half of that chessboard, we're going to have 100 tons of rice, and that is nothing. Because on the entire chessboard, when it really takes off, we're going to have a mountain of rice which is higher than Mount Everest. 460 billion tons of rice. And half of that mountain is on the last square. And if you would put another square after those 64 squares, you would have another mountain there, plus 1 grain of rice, actually, to be precise. So this is exponential growth. And the most common example of exponential growth you have in your ordinary life is your smartphone or any electronic device, digital device. Because another concept you probably heard of, Moore's law, that was observed by Gordon Moore, the founder of Intel in 1965, describes the development of digital tools. So he observed, if you remember, the number of transistors on a semiconductor chip, you know, those chips we have in this and in the car, in the washing machine, in the computer, telephone, the number of transistors on a semiconducting chip doubles every second year, right? So he observed that in 1965, and he thought it would be valid for like 10 years. And what happened? 2 years ago, Moore's law turned 50. And it doesn't seem to slow down. Well, they have some difficulties right now with silicon and the dimensions of the lines of those semiconductor chips they're using. It's starting to get very, very small, but they're having new technologies around the corner, building chips on 3 dimensions instead of 2, and we got the quantum computer technology also further ahead, which is actually developing and will give us computers with extremely much more capacity. So, let me see. 50 years of Moore's law, that would be, well, 52 years, right? Would be 26 doublings. That would not be even half of that chessboard. Okay. So now you start where we're heading. Start to see. Right, we're not even at those 100 tons, so that mountain is waiting over there. Okay. And actually, it's interesting to note that this doubling didn't start in 1965. If you take into account old computer technologies such as radio tubes and relays and punch cards, the doubling of capacity of a computer started already at the beginning of the 20th century. You know, doubling, if you calculate the capacity of number of calculations every second per dollar. And it could be even much, much older than that. In fact, some people argue that this exponential growth started already at the beginning of life, but we're going to see at that. First, have a look at what happened with Moore's law, you know. Since 1991, some things happened. Do you remember those things? Oh, we had them all. So, even a telephone, you know. So someone calculated that if you would take those things back in 1991, you would buy them. That would have cost you like, well, $3,000. Well, that's not bad. But it's not true, because if you take into account the processor capacity and the memory capacity and the connectivity of that device, it would have cost you back in 1991, if you could have built it or bought it, it would have cost you $3 million, not $3,000. Right? And you all have that in your pocket. Well, you don't, because that's an iPhone 4, and you don't have an iPhone 4 any longer. You know that. You got an iPhone 6 or 7 or even 8, I don't know, or Samsung corresponding. it's not like cars that they're getting a little bit better every year. And if they don't, you have to cheat like Volkswagen did. They're really getting better, these things. Double as good every second year, more or less, right? So something is really happening. It's accelerating. And getting back to that thought, actually, it could have started already back at the beginning of life. Let's have a look at it. So 3.5 billion years ago, we had the first organism, the living organism, which was more or less like a bacteria with no cell nucleus, a monocellular organism. And we're called prokaryote organisms. Right. So what happened? Well, if you think about it, by the way, what did we have at that time? We'd have a DNA molecule. And that's not something that you just throw up some elements in the air and you just have it. So probably it started way, way, way back further. But anyway, let's say it started 3.5 billion years ago. It took life 2 billion years to go to the next step, which would be the eukaryote organisms, which are multicellular and they have a cell nucleus, like we have, more or less, like we are, right? 2 billion years. That's what I call a slow starter. So on the y-axis here, you got the pace of change, the number of big things happening every 100 years. And at the beginning, nothing is really happening. It's extremely slow. But it takes off. We got the Cambrian explosion, which was a period when most origins of today's species were founded. And actually, nature invented sight, the eye, the capability of looking, which was a very good invention. And that actually accelerated further inventions. We had the reptiles 300 million years ago, the mammals 200 million years ago, apes walking on 2 legs 6 million years ago, the first stone tools 2.5 million years ago, Homo sapiens, our own species, 300,000 years ago, and 50,000 years ago we made our first important invention, the language. So we could speak to each other, not just standing there in a circle saying, and picking roots and berries in the forest, right? And 10,000 years ago, we moved into small villages and started with agriculture, which was extremely important too, because then we came closer together and we could exchange ideas. And from that point in time, you can also see that inventions starting coming up. 5,000 years ago, the wheel and the written language. 500 years ago, the printing press and the scientific revolution. 250 years ago, the steam engine and the industrial revolution. 150 years ago, electricity, telephone, and radio. 50 years ago, PC and the internet. 25 years ago, World Wide Web. 10 years ago, the smartphone. Can you see that acceleration? How come? It's strange. It doesn't feel like that. When we look at our lives, it feels like, what happened in the last 10 years will be more or less what happens in the next 10 years, but it's not like that. It is accelerating, only that you can't observe it in such a short time frame. Although I must say, sitting in front of my computer, I would say that really feels like things are accelerating today when you see the flow of news of technological and scientific progress. So the explanation would be that when you have an invention in this kind of systems, it's fed back into the system and it accelerates the pace of new inventions. So it's a feedback loop. And if you put that into math, what comes out is actually an exponential function. So that would be the math behind it. But anyway, it's the feedback loop that accelerates this pace. So there is an explanation for this acceleration, although we have not really looked upon it in our own lives. But in the long perspective, we can see it. So what we have now is the internet, which basically is the same thing as moving into villages. We come closer together, we can exchange ideas, which makes it more effective of having new ideas. Only that now it's going across the world in 1 microsecond, from one end of the world to the other. So it's extremely efficient for creating new ideas. And still we're waiting for another 1 billion or 2 billion people being connected to the internet, which will accelerate it further. So now we have this system which is actually like pouring gasoline on a glow of ideas. It's so extremely efficient for ideas. So what will happen next? So if we had the smartphone 10 years ago, and now you can see the pace of change is about one important progress change every 10 years, or 10 in 100 years. So the next thing, what would that be? Self-driving cars, artificial intelligence. Well, these are the things we're talking about. Let's say it's about artificial intelligence. So how long have we got then? You've heard about it. It was invented in 1950. We started to talk about it, and nothing really seemed to happen for many decades. And now it is happening. There are great progress being made, but all the big IT companies, Apple, IBM, Baidu, Yahoo, everyone working with artificial intelligence. And actually, again, it's difficult to understand because, we are so fantastic. Could a machine ever get as fantastic as we are? It's difficult to understand. Because, the brain is the most advanced object in the universe as we know it. But machines today, again, aren't tools. The most advanced computers today aren't being programmed. They are learning. We are throwing stuff at them, and they learn by themselves. So where did we get? You probably heard of this achievement 1 year ago, that a computer system owned by Google, invented by DeepMind, which was a UK company, called AlphaGo, won against the best player in the world in the Chinese board game Go, which is extremely advanced, much more advanced than chess, where you could just calculate a couple of draws ahead and you know what kind of thing you would do. In Go, there are so many possibilities that there are more possibilities than atoms in the universe. So you have to have some kind of intuition. And this system actually made draws in the game that Lee Sedol, this world-class player, said he never saw a human player do before. It's a very particular computer system that was created. And now this is important because we are at a situation in time with the technology where we start maybe to actually teach the technology but also learn from technology. So there is a kind of interaction here which is new, first time in human history. The thing is that it was expected that this achievement would have been made 10 years from now, not today. And it happened last year. And just before it happened, or just after it happened, there was another achievement. It was a computer system in the US playing poker against the best players in the world for 3 weeks. And this computer system actually won $1.7 million. I think it was fake money, but anyway. So playing for 3 weeks, they won against these poker players. And that was even more advanced because in Go, you have open information. In poker, you have hidden information. So you got to have some idea of guessing hidden information. You got to have some kind of intuition. And you also have to be able to cheat. Not cheat, but I mean at least fool your co-players. Make them think that you have other cards that you really have. So that's an extremely advanced computer system, which actually some people say that was very good because we're going to use that in business negotiation and in military strategy. And probably they will. Again, these are the levels that they are right now. It's fairly narrow. It's called narrow artificial intelligence. It's not the general strong artificial intelligence that would correspond to human intelligence. And there's quite a long step to go. But actually, you could also note that it's considered that chess players and Go players are not the most intelligent people in the world when it comes to IQ, actually. They have very standard IQ, but they're extremely specialized in their way of thinking, like these systems are. The progress is being made. And some people expect that if with this pace of progress, that you saw the accelerating pace before, we're going to have strong artificial intelligence, general artificial intelligence in machines in 2029. That would be 12 years from now. 12 years ago, we were standing there with lighters, and from 12 years from now, we would have machines as intelligent as humans. Again, hard to believe, could be possible, maybe not. We still don't have a clue how to create consciousness, for one thing. But maybe. And I would say, personally, looking at the progress that's being made, if it's not 12 years from now, it would be like 20 at the maximum. Let's say it happens. If it happens, then you would have a system that would be able to improve itself. And then you're going to have a new acceleration, a new explosion, which some people call the intelligence explosion, after which you would have in 2045 something called superintelligence. And superintelligence is not just something that's a little bit smarter than you and me, like an Einstein, but something that is so much smarter than we are, as we are smarter than a rabbit or an ant. So would that thing be interested in us or talking with us, Well, we don't know, but when you hear people, smart people like Elon Musk and Bill Gates and Stephen Hawking warning for artificial intelligence, this is the thing that they're afraid of. And they say, we have to get it right the first time, otherwise we're screwed. Because you just can't fight it. You can't pull the plug because it's too smart. It has already made copies of itself and spread around the world, so you just can't stop it. Well, we don't know. This is speculation. Some people argue that you actually can't measure intelligence on one scale, but you could say that animals are actually more intelligent than humans in certain aspects. So it's speculation. But the point is, combining this with the observation we can do of acceleration of technology, is that making 50-year scenarios is really, really, really impossible. So when people come to you and say, 50 years from now, we've got to have these plans for this city, 50 years is way too far in the future. Let's stay with 10 or 15 years at the maximum. 50 years from now, we really don't know what's going to happen. And by the way, turning back to that curve, some people may say that, well, you know, life and technology, that's not the same curve. Well, I would argue it is, actually, because it all came from the same origin. No one was there to put a finger and change something. I mean, universe created matter, that created chemistry, that created life, that created intelligence, that created technology. It's all part of the same system. So let's see what's happened. But I'm going to stop there looking to the future. I just said that we can't look 50 years into the future because we don't know what's going to happen. Let's have a look at what happened, right? What has happened so far, how we got here. What is digitalization that took us here to those smartphones that we touch 2,617 times a day on average. So, how many of you remember Napster? Everyone, I knew it. We're all file sharers in this country. Good file sharers. No, let's have a look. What was Napster really? Well, we had a music industry that had been prospering for like 100 years with the same business model. Registering sound on a physical device, packaging that, and distributing it, selling it to customers. 100 years, without any problem. New inventions, the old 78 RPM records, the vinyl records, the cassette tapes, and the CD on the 90s. Do you remember the CD? We all had CDs. We don't have them any longer. Funny, my kids ask me, what's that, Dad? CD. But there was really no problem in the music industry. Not a cloud on the horizon. And then in the end of the 90s, you have this little website turning up. And the music industry didn't even notice it, Napster, where you could upload digital music and download digital music from people you didn't even know who they were. Any music in the world, for free. Illegal? Yes, but that doesn't matter. Because once it's made possible, you just have to adapt to this new situation. This is digitalization. This is technology. Technology changes the conditions for what you're doing, and you have to adapt. You can fight it, but it's no use, because eventually you will have to adapt. So what happened? The music industry was fighting. Eventually, the only thing they could do was trying to find a solution, and what happened was a new business model, a new revenue model, which was Spotify or Apple Music or whatever, any of those, you know, having a fixed sum of money for any music you would like to listen to. So the technology changes the conditions. It doesn't really change the contents of what you're doing, although internet changes also the contents when it comes to music, because you can reach the whole world from your living room. But the main thing is that you have to adapt to the new situation with a new business model. You could ask, if this was just one case, music industry, well, it won't happen anywhere else in the same way. It will. Everywhere. The only reason that it happened first in the music industry was that it was the easiest place to digitalize from end to end. From registering all the way, packaging, distributing, all the way up to the ear where it's analog, the last, millimeters. But it's all digital. It will be more complex in other industries, in other businesses, but it will always be this same effect of digitalization, which changes the conditions that you have to adapt to. And many industries have not really found the solutions yet that the music industry seems to have. Okay, so why is it so powerful? Let's have a look at what's really happening with digitalization. The first thing is this, which is not an equation, it's not mathematics, don't worry. It's Control-C equals $0. So a digital copy costs basically zero. You heard that. Once you've digitalized anything, making a copy is basically free. Combine that with the internet, which lets you reach the whole world with just one click. This is what killed the business model in the music industry, because it changes the conditions for normal economy. You know, the supply and demand curves that you have for finding the price point. If you can make how many copies as you like, then supply is infinite. So you can't use that model any longer. And this is also what changes, driving kind of a change, pushing a change from owning to accessing. You don't own your music longer, you access your music. You don't own your IT infrastructure, you're accessing it in the cloud. You will not own your cars, you will access transportation. It's a general shift that comes from the efficiency of digitalization. It's important to understand. The second thing that happens is that we're using this. We're building networks, people. And one main thing to understand from people using internet is that we have had basically anything we did for thousands of years has been hierarchical. And then suddenly comes internet, connecting people peer-to-peer all over the world, from one individual to another, horizontally. And this also is a tremendous shift, changing lots of things. It changes how organizations work. They used to be silos, closed with closed walls, people staying inside, information is staying inside. Now suddenly information is flowing in and out because it's difficult to prevent that it's being copied, and people are flowing in and out, maybe quitting their job but still being connected because their knowledge is important, so we have some kind of contact with them anyway. So, you know, it's completely different. Maybe we're going towards what they call autonomous organizations without managers. There is one in the Netherlands, which is employing about 10,000 nurses, working independently in teams of 10 to 12 persons, with a total for 10,000 employees, with a total for 50 people working in the administration, more or less. So it's complete autonomy. They're deciding of their own activities every day. They don't have any top managers anyway, any middle managers, nothing. This is a distributed autonomous organization. It might be the answer to this change. That's organization. Then it changes other things as well. It changes, you know very well how this horizontal connection has been changing news in the world. We know it from Brexit, from the presidential election in the US, that we're not getting news any longer from news organizations with editors and etc. But we're getting news from people through Facebook. And suddenly we don't know which news are real news or fake news. So it really changes the conditions for everything. It's important to remember. So what are we doing then with the internet? We are publishing things because we reach the whole world with just one click. We are sharing things that we used to share with friends and family, colleagues locally. Now we share it with the world, people anywhere in the world. And what's digital can be shared infinitely. What's not digital can be shared on digital platforms like, you know, crowdfunding or Airbnb or Uber or even pet sitting. Anything can be shared efficiently through a digital platform. Then we're building things. We're building huge things like Wikipedia, and also like all the open source world, for example, which is incredible when you think about it, because there are large amounts of value stored or sitting on open source code everywhere in the world in large companies and not being calculated in any balance sheet anywhere in the world. So what is this? This is people doing things not because they're being paid to do it, they're doing things voluntarily because they want to do it. It's a new thing that internet makes possible. So just 10 or 20 years ago, to do things like that, you would need to be a national, a country, a state, or an international organization, a corporation. Now people can do it because they want to do it. It's an important shift. And then the last thing, which I would say is the most underestimated part of the internet, is how it's working like a mixer, a digital mixer. Because once you digitalize content or processes or anything, you can mix it with other digital content. Let me have a look at Spotify again. If you remember, they used to have apps. There was an app at Spotify where you could actually date people from your playlists. Maybe a good idea, I don't know. I mean, if you got the same music taste as I have, maybe we have some, vibes, feeling today. Could be good, could be bad. But no, my point is this one. Try to imagine doing that before you had digital music services. You would take your CDs, put them in a box, walk down the stairs into the street, put them on the table, and talk with people going by. Hi, do you like this one? Do you like my music? Do you want to come up to my place and have a talk? You see, it's a huge, tremendous difference. And this, I would say, this is the most underestimated opportunity for new services products, be it private sector or public sector, whatever you could do. Mix digital content and processes and information. And then we got algorithms, artificial intelligence, and big data coming in and using these possibilities in the same way we are using it, maybe at least in the future. So we got the algorithms like we have in Amazon, people who like that also like this. If you bought that, you probably would like to buy that. Correlation. Whereas artificial intelligence more adds the why and how aspect of the same questions, so it's kind of a higher value. And you got big data, which is pattern recognition, that we are so good, it's our strongest capacity in the brain to recognize patterns, faces and objects and even feelings and situations. Those are all patterns. And big data is computer systems being able to see patterns in huge amounts of data where we see nothing. Today we have to teach them or help them, guide them to look for a specific pattern or something somewhere. But maybe they're going to be autonomous and actually self-learning and observe patterns that we didn't ask them to look for, which will be a new, unique possibilities of having interaction and help again. So now I would say that when we talk about artificial intelligence being a friend or foe, I mean a threat or an opportunity, what we're starting to see now is this possibility, as in the Go game, to have interaction. Machines learning from humans and humans learning from machines and trying to make the best of the team. Because in the end, you know that the best chess team is not only computers or not only humans, but it's a mixture, a human and a computer. No one can beat that today in chess. And it's the same in many situations, many fields. It could be everything from chess, mental kind of games, to research or professional activities of any kind of doctors diagnosing illnesses and other things. So this is going to change basically not the music industry, but the whole world. That's my point. And I'm trying to have a look at several industries, the effects of this digitalization. You could talk about media, my own sector, how robots actually are writing stories today. You don't even know it because it doesn't say robot at the end of the text, but they actually write really good sports stories and economy, financial stories is out of data today, program. Perfect, because I can concentrate on more interesting stuff. You can see it in the finance industry, robots making stock trades. You can see it in law, actually, with robot lawyers. So there are many things going on in many industries. Let's have a look at a few of them. I'm going to start with the health industry, healthcare. You might recognize this picture. So this is the computer system by IBM that's called Watson, that was developed to beat humans in the quiz show Jeopardy. So this was in 2011. IBM had won against Kasparov in chess in 1999, I think it was, and they wanted to do something more advanced, but still in the same line, but more advanced. So they started to think about winning a quiz show, Jeopardy. And in the beginning, they didn't make any good progress at all, but in 2011, they had this game for 2 days, and they won $1 million. It's actually a little bit creepy. If you haven't looked at it, look it up at YouTube, where you can hear how the situation plays out. You know, Jeopardy, there is the game leader who gives a clue, which is the answer, and the participants have to find the question. And it's not, you know, it's not an easy clue. It's not something you just Google and find the answer. It's a short one, tricky one with some formulations, might be some word joking and things like that. And these people, they come up with a solution in 3 seconds. So that was the time span that Watson had to beat. So Watson is using like a 10 or 20 algorithms. And in the internal memory of Watson, it's there you got the entire Wikipedia, entire Encyclopedia Britannica, and other stuff. unorganized, unstructured data. And Watson goes in there with these algorithms and makes kind of associations like humans do. The two other players say that the way of working with Watson was, he kind of seemed similar to us. And in 3 seconds, Watson calculates the most probable answer or the most probable question and pushes the robot finger on the button, because they decided that he had a robot finger, otherwise it would be unfair competition, right? So, and then he reads out this answer with his machine voice. It's a little bit creepy, actually. But IBM, of course, didn't construct Watson to win quiz shows. But to work. And the first work that Watson was supposed to do, which he's still trying to do and going to school to learn, is diagnosing cancer. And it's the same concept. When you pour data into Watson, you pour guidelines and textbooks and all the research papers that comes out. Only that, you got one research paper, a second maybe. And not all of that is medicine, of course, but it's a huge amount of research coming out, and no doctor in the world can keep up with that. But Watson can. And then the patient data, of course. So then Watson sits down, if Watson can sit, I don't know, with the doctor and the patient, and they have a dialogue about the situation. Watson might say, please take this analysis as well, and then we're going to talk about it. After a week, they come back and they say, well, here is the data. Here is the diagnosis, here is the proof, and here's the best treatment, and here's the proof of that. They're actually not really there. They have some difficulties. It's really a big project. One of the most difficult problems for Watson is actually to interpret the handwritten notes by the doctor on the patient. You know, those difficulties might also be important. Anyway, what you can achieve, what they're about to achieve, is with these kind of systems, you got the whole knowledge of a big hospital down in the pocket of the doctor or the patient, which is incredible. If you get that to all the people in the world who are being connected, then you just have to add some other things. And one of the things you add is this one. Not really, but almost. If you remember Dr. Spock, Mr. Spock, he had the machine he has on his front is a tricorder, which you put on a human that was injured or ill, and the tricorder would tell you what was wrong with that person. So that seems to be science fiction, but it's not. You got this organization that you might have heard of, which is called X Prize Foundation, which rewards kind of $10 million for technological progress in some field. The first prize they awarded was the first private space trip, which then gave start to the private space industry. But now, a few years ago, they started this tricorder X Prize for the team that would come up with a mobile solution diagnosing 15 common diseases or telling you that the patient was okay. And this year, they actually awarded the winning prize. They were not really complying with the final requests of 15 diseases, but almost. This is the thing. Dexter from Medical Frontier, I don't remember the name of the company. Anyway, so this is the device. It's already here, the tricorder. And just a few months before they actually awarded the prize, there was this other research from the UK where they analyzed your breath, analyzing 13 volatile components in your breath and putting that through a system with artificial intelligence, self-learning system, analyzing a kind of breath print to see the structure of your breath correlated to certain diseases. And they actually could prove that they, with an accuracy of 80 or 85% something, could diagnose 17 common diseases only from your breath, including kidney cancer and Parkinson. Did you know that? That you can feel from your breath that you have Parkinson? You bet. And these people actually say that they could put this in the market for just a few hundred kroner, so like tens of dollars or pounds. So we got this huge amount of knowledge in the big hospital with systems like Watson, and you got all these small devices, and actually also all your smartphones, which can be connected to sensors to become a microscope or a meter for glucose or whatever. And combine that, and you can give the best healthcare to the world, advanced healthcare to all the people in the world that are connected for a very low price. It's a huge opportunity, but it's also a huge challenge. Because when you have that kind of technology, you're going to have private structures offering people the possibility to get diagnosed for the illnesses at a very low cost. And then we line up outside the hospital. And if the hospital, the public healthcare, can't take care of that data, they will have to start from the beginning with every patient. How do you feel? So they're going to be overloaded. So that's just one of the challenges. And then you got challenges, of course, with IT security, which is always there in these digitalization aspects, and also with personal integrity, etc. But this is healthcare. Let's have a look also at transportation. Transportation. The funny thing about transportation is that a few years ago when you talked about digitalization of transportation, no one knew what it was about. Today, everyone is talking about self-driving cars. 10 years ago, they didn't even exist, except for in research projects in the desert in America. Paid for by the American military research agency, DARPA. It's actually hilarious to read those stories about those cars. At that time, they just fell off and started burn and drove against rocks, whatever. Now they're almost here. And the thing is, it's not a question if they will arrive or not. The question is if we will be allowed to drive cars. Because what Sebastian Thrun, one of the driving persons at Google, said was, I want to save 1 million people a year. Because 1.2 million people die on public roads in accidents every year in the world. And most of that is, of course, because of the human factor. 1.2 million people, that's 3,000 a day, 2 per minute. Very few diseases kill so many people. So it's not a question if they come or not. The question is if we will be allowed, and I don't think so. I don't think we will put humans behind the steering wheel of a machine that's running at over 100 kilometers an hour on narrow roads with meeting traffic. No way, 10, 20 years from now. Because machines never get tired, never get irritated, never get annoyed, never discuss with other people in the car, never look at other people in other cars to be angry at them, and they certainly never get drunk. So no way. It's just better. Here's the prototype that Google presented 2014. Now they don't make cars any longer. They're just making technology selling to other car companies. But this funny thing is that it didn't have any steering wheel, no clutch, no brake, no accelerator, but it had mirrors because the traffic authority wanted it to have mirrors. I will be a little late. We're running a few minutes more. So this is the first commercial class 3, level 3 out of 5 autonomous car. Level 3 is basically taking care of all the driving for velocities up to a certain range. But the interesting thing is that Audi, which will sell these cars next year, the AI Audi, they will actually take responsibility for the driving where the autopilot is activated. So if you have an accident and it's your fault or your car's fault, Audi will take responsibility for that. So it's here. And this is shaking the car industry because it's happening at the same time with the electrical driving, connected cars, and self-driving cars. It's the perfect storm, which will change cars from being cars to computers on 4 wheels. And the most important thing won't be the hardware any longer, but the software and the experience inside, which is called the passenger economy. And we're not really sure that Audi or Volkswagen or BMW or those large hardware companies will be the companies that will be successful at delivering that. So this is really shaking the car industry. Again, digitalization. This is a bus for 12 persons with IBM Watson inside, answering your questions. And this is the Swedish truck, self-driving car. Without the place for the driver, it's completely self-driving, which already is decided that will be running as a shuttle between Gothenburg and Helsingborg, 120 of them in 2020, I think. So if you get passed by such a car in 2 years from now, don't be afraid. Perfectly in order. Right. And they're going up in the air too. So in Dubai, they already make experiments for having commercial drones, pilotless drones, transporting people at the end of the year. These are the first ones that they tried out. So this is digitalization of transportation. A brief look at industry 2. So in industry, digitalization is happening as well. What is that then? It's using data. It's industry 1 was the steam engine, industry 2 was the electrical engine, industry 3 was electronics, industry 4 is data. Using data to optimizing your activities, being real-time, personalizing all your products and your production to customers, and also having sensor. It's all sensor networks providing data and using that information. Having sensors in the products with your customer, making it possible to offer services rather than products, like selling air instead of compressors, which is already happening. So I had, when I was trained as a student at KTH in Stockholm, there was this research experiments of putting sensors on a turbine to analyze, you know, like a doctor, the vibrations to see if you could understand when the turbine would break down, before it broke down. And the goal was, of course, to have it to make maintenance before it broke down, because it's much easier than after a turbine breaks down. And that was research. Now it's off-the-shelf technology. This is a ball bearing system by SKF, packed with sensors, giving you data about vibrations and temperature and rotation and pressure and everything. And you can analyze that data to see what you're doing in industry. So without going any further, it's a huge shift also in industry. Then you got automation. This is Amelia. Amelia is like Watson. It's a system by an American company called IPsoft, which understands natural language, learns from natural language, and solves problem. So they try her specifically in customer care. And she sits there, you pour information into her, she answers questions, and when she's answered the question, or if she doesn't answer the question, she can sit there and learn. So she would actually take an incoming call if she can't answer the question. She would sit and listen to that call when a human agent is solving the problem. And she listens not to one call, but to 100 calls or 1,000 calls. And after 1 month, Amelia could, a couple of years ago already, solve, without human intervention, 65% of incoming calls, solve the problem, and now actually 65% faster than her human colleagues. And now IPsoft told me the other week that in 2 years from now, Amelia will be able to do all the common works in an office at all common companies by herself. So you would say, and she also analyzes your state of if you're angry or annoyed or something, she analyzes that, and she uses that to eventually give you the right answer. People say, don't want to be helped by a computer. Well, you bet. If this system solves your problem, which customer care normally maybe doesn't, and if you need to go to the kitchen to look after the food, or go to work, or go to talk with the kids, or go for holiday for 1 week, and you come back and she's not annoyed at all because she remembers where you were talking about, you will be happy. I think so. The thing is, what we will do as humans, because we got automation also in physical work with robots. These new robots, like this one, which is called Baxter from Rethink Robotics. It's not the old one that kills you in the cage if you come near it. It's a robot built to work together with people. So if it touches you, it stops, and it's not programmed. You teach it how to do. You teach it how to do by showing how you should do it, and then it does it. If it doesn't understand, it can look with sad face and make you understand that it wants some more instructions. So what will people do if everything is automated? Everything is so intelligent. Well, first of all, the first question you should ask yourself is, what would I like not to do? What kind of things that I'm doing today would I like machines to do for me, not wasting my valuable time as a human? Because it's a routine task. They're very good at routine tasks. They will do that for you. And then there are 4 things that machines are better, that we are better at for a very long time than machines. And those are creativity, the capability of convincing and motivating other people, empathy, and fine dexterity, actually, not repetitive fine dexterity, but fine dexterity for solving problems. So whatever that you're doing in your work, if you're a researcher or a hairdresser or whatever, the thing that belongs to one of these 4 areas are the things that you should expand on. And the things that you don't want to do, you should leave it to the machines. So this is, again, for collaboration. Actually, Google made this system, research system, to understand how machines and people can collaborate. It's an art system. And they made the parallel with photography. When photography came out, some people said it's not art, it's just copying the reality. Well, it's like saying that artificial intelligence is not intelligence. Well, it is, but we have to interact with it, because eventually photography came to interact with normal art. And artificial intelligence interacts with people. This is a system that analyzes a painting where you could have some bird-like aspect. This system with increase the bird-like aspects. So kind of simple if you want to, but it's a self-learning system, and you have this, thought idea of exchanging, interacting with artificial intelligence, which is not just something else. It's similar to us, but we're interacting. And you would say that, actually, one of the best quotes I heard about this is the former director of DARPA, the American Research Agency, which I will end up with, because it's food for thought. These issues are daunting, but that is precisely the reason to be excited. It's the best evidence that we are truly at a frontier, and the fact that we are inexorably drawn to these questions, even as we struggle to answer them, that we are both excited and unsettled, suggests that this co-evolution of our long-standing selves and our new technological partners will, by forcing us to examine our deepest desires, make us more human than ever been, maybe even unrecognizably so. So we're being more human, but we don't know even what that means. But one thing is for certain, if we want to do something good at this, we got to remember who we are. Not get blindfolded by the speed of technology, but remember that we are humans. Thanks.
Thank you, Mats. That was super inspiring. And there are two things that I'm really happy about. One thing is that I'm a Trekkie. Yes, I'm a nerd. And the other one is that this is finally a subject that I'm familiar with. So thank you. It was super interesting. I have a question for you, which is, we don't have much time. We will have my question and then one question. And then I hope you stay for lunch.
Yeah, I will
so
be
you
here.
can talk to Mats while you're networking and having lunch. Is Elon Musk right? Will the robots take over our jobs?
Again, I think they will take over very large parts of many tasks we are doing today, but I think more and more that we will be able to expand our human capacities to collaborate with machines. So they won't steal our jobs. They will steal parts of our jobs that we actually don't want to do. But the problem might be, and this is the big question, I would say, the question is not where technology is heading or how it will develop. The question is how we will react as a mass of people. Because not everyone might be comfortable of expanding into those human capacity areas. Some people maybe want to do these repetitive things, and I don't know what they will do if they don't want to change. So these are the questions we need to fight with. And those are eventually political questions, and that's why I'm passionate about talking about this, because I think people need to talk about this.
So you're talking about the blue-collar jobs, basically, yeah?
But no. You got repetitive tasks in offices as well. Lots
Yeah.
of them.
Yeah.
And some people really like them.
Yeah, some people really do.
Yeah. So the question is, I mean, how people will react.
Yeah.
And if we can talk about this to find new ways ahead.
Yeah. Like CFOs and finance managers, for example.
Yeah, administration, lots of administration.
Yeah.
And that people really comfortable, the thing is, if you're used to go administration every day and you like it, and one day some people say that you don't have that job any longer, you got to answer phone or be in contact with people, or even you don't have a work and you have to get up in the morning and ask yourself, what do I want in my life? That's a big change.
Yeah, it is. You talked a little bit about the Internet of Things and AI, which is a really interesting subject. And I was looking at the PowerPoint presentation that you have, and there were two guys standing there at Jeopardy, right? And there was Watson in the middle. And the physical manifestation of Watson is a girl, right? Her
I don't
name is
know.
Pepper.
Oh, maybe.
Yeah, she's a robot.
Yeah. That's another robot. That's not. Yeah, Watson. All right. Okay.
So that was really interesting to see.
Yeah.
No, I'm not a feminist, not at all. So, and you talked about the smartphone. Did you know how much?
Just to go back to talking about feminism and machines.
Okay.
Because you could argue they're not men, they're not women, but there is a big challenge with artificial intelligence today, which is bias in data.
Yeah.
So they are self-learning, but they might learn biased information, and that could be against race or gender or whatever. So it's one important thing to discuss, actually.
Yeah, diversity
sorry.
is always important. No, that's a good comment. Did you know, you asked us a lot of questions. Did you know how much, do you know how much computing power an Apple, are you sponsored by Apple, by the way?
No.
I have an Android. Yeah.
No, no, yeah, I got an iPhone, but sorry, no, I'm not sponsored.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, it was a joke. So, do you know how much computing power a smartphone has?
Compared to what?
Compared to NASA activities,
Oh, well,
spaceships?
well, it's much more than the original Apollo 11 went to the
Yes.
moon. Yeah, and it's some people say when you got a smartphone in your pocket, you got access to more information than U.S. president had 10 years ago.
Yeah, you have a rocket ship in your pocket.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so we have time for one question from the audience. Do you want to pick one yourself? I mean, I've given the opportunity to other speakers, so.
I would say, what is the greatest risk with this rapid development? The greatest risk is that we're not talking about it enough to be able to keep up with a public discussion for making good things out of it. And it's very easy, you know, to suddenly find yourself in a situation where the development just rushes against you like a wall, and you're not prepared. So I would say that's the greatest risk of rapid development. That we have to prepare more, talk more about it.
So one last thing, you've been talking about everything being connected, right? Things and people and things. What will happen if there's a worldwide blackout? I'm not conspiring here, and there is no internet.
Well, we're depending more and more on technology. And that's a big risk, of course. We just have to live with it. Some people say that the biggest problems with advanced artificial intelligence systems is not that they will take over the power of the world or will threaten us, but that they will be so advanced that we actually can't repair them ourselves. But we need systems to repair the systems. And I think that's a very possible scenario, that we actually will be more and more kind of by-sitters looking at systems and activities in the world that we actually don't really control or understand. That's a possible scenario, I would say.
Yeah.
And in that case, when we have a blackout, you're really in the hands of the systems to repairing themselves.
Yeah.
But of course, we have to be able to have the basic life supporting activities in such a situation. That will be difficult because we will be many people on the earth. And the one thing that makes it possible to be so many people on the earth today that we are is technology.
Yeah. So maybe that's the next exponential innovation that we will see. No internet, but still we're going to be able to connect.
Oh,
right?
maybe. Oh,
yeah.
Maybe, yeah. A backup system.
Thank you so much, Mats.
Thank you.
It was a great talk. You're always welcome back. Great audience, right? Okay.
I would love to answer your questions, but you will have to take one-to-one.
Yeah, he will be outside. And speaking about networking and asking questions, so during the lunch, please do talk to each other. I mean, we have a lot of companies, maybe not a lot of companies, but a few companies, university people, researchers, students, and so on and so forth. Now, we will have lunch, and the lunch is at Restaurant Avenue. And Tunnbindaren, which is on the second floor. So, and also take the opportunity to visit the poster showcase, which is also upstairs. It's the Mid-Sweden University's research centers that are there. People happy to talk to you. After the lunch, there will be the parallel tracks, the breakout sessions, and there should be, I think, there you are, Susanne. Some information on a website, or on the website at scienceandinnovationday.se.com. And that will end at 4 o'clock. And then you're welcome back here at 5 p.m. for the rest of the night. Thank you so much, everybody, and have a great lunch.